Sean and Dave be making music, yo. On location, bumping bass from Sketch Studio. Not talking alchemy, homie, I be spitting gold. So take a break, don't change the station on your radio. Slumber on the tracks, you can feel what this producer do. Tune in every week or two and hear just what they got for you. Sean and Dave make music.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Sean and Dave Make Music. This month, we're trying something a little bit different. We've got a guest artist / producer for this episode, Stephen Kokas. Steve runs Sketch Studio out of Aston, PA, and we've worked together a few times before. My band Silly Heart recorded our EP at Sketch, though with a different engineer, and he did mix and master the Silly Heart single Future Home, as well as giving me tips on a lot of my other projects. My mixing skills are self-taught, so there have been quite a few instances over the years where I've had to hit him up and say, what is it that sounds off in this mix? How do I fix it? What's the balance like? He loves making music and particularly collaborating with people, so he doesn't ever charge me for this. Thanks, Steve. And his style is completely different from the rest of the episodes you've heard on this show, so it was really fun getting to work with him, and I think it's a refreshing change. Let's dive right in. Hello, and welcome to Sean and Dave Make Music. We're here with Dave and our first guest producer, Stephen Kokas.
Hello.
Welcome to your own studio, Stephen.
Thank you.
Welcome to our show.
Thank you for waking me up at 10 a.m. I'm a bartender during my day job, so this is the middle of the night for me.
Well, I got up and left my house earlier than I normally do during the week, if that helps at all.
I feel like most musicians, 10 a.m. is pretty much the middle of the night. So.
Wouldn't go that far, but...
Well, you working musicians...
Solidly still the morning.
the bulk of us that are still chasing the dream, 10 a.m. is very early.
Oh,
yeah.
I think your quick aside. I think your mic is journeying.
Sometimes I got floppy mic syndrome over here. They haven't come up with a pill yet, but yeah. So we got the MD 421s, which me and Dave are on, and Sean is on the RE20 for all you audio nerds out there.
Ooh, technical specs.
So we're gonna get some. They're both great dynamic mics.
How do we sound? Do we sound better than normal?
They should be really good bass response. I use these on the toms and the recordings, which we'll hear later.
Yeah, those mics sounded great on the toms. I was actually surprised at how good your toms sounded.
So what's nice
not
is
being used or tuned for a long time.
I worked at a local music shop. I don't know if we should.
Yeah, why don't we start with our history together?
Yeah.
We know each other because we both worked at the music store in Delaware, Accent Music. We had great times. We had bad times. We'll not talk about it too much, but
no, the bad times were just. I mean, there was nothing bad with us. It was just you know, running a business is tough, especially small business. Got to see that firsthand. I actually took. I don't know if you remember this. I took some lessons from you.
Mm-hmm, of course.
So Sean is a multi-instrumentalist. He does everything, as you all know. Just because he plays it all on the podcast. Let me adjust this. All right. But I took 2 weeks of clarinet, flute, alto sax, and
2 weeks or 2 months?
Well, 2 weeks of each.
Oh,
I think it was like 2 full
each.
Months.
Gotcha.
And there was one more in there with a violin.
I didn't teach you violin.
Ukulele, maybe guitar or something.
It's like crash courses.
Yeah, it was
exactly.
like, well, I felt like people were coming in and I was like, I can't even get a noise out of a clarinet or something like that. I should be able to like at least test if like, you know, I don't want a 5-year-old to show me up if I'm going to be selling the equipment. So I'm like, I should be able to do that. Should just be a prerequisite.
And that was like way more commitment than most of the other employees showed. So
well,
on you.
Also I'm a keyboardist by trade and everybody else was a guitarist, so they had a leg up on me. Mm-hmm. So that's another reason why I wanted to make sure I was getting better at the oddball instruments. Not oddball, but you know.
Yeah, the non-standard ones. So was that the last time you touched any of your wind instruments?
For the most part, however, I have touched them probably once a year just to like see if I remembered anything, and I don't. Okay. But like every once in a while we talk about this too. My basement's just filled with instruments that, you know, between bands and, you know, working there, I always had access to, you know, cheaper gear that I'm like, oh yeah, I'll use this one day. So I don't ever use it. My mom took violin lessons randomly, so I like joined her for like a couple lessons, cool. And then she just took off and I sucked at it and I was like, oh, I'm not doing this. You know, I quit like every 5th grade student that has come in probably does.
Well, it's interesting because those instruments, I don't know, you when we sat down on your couch, you were like, oh, it's great to have real musicians here. And like, I don't completely know what you mean by that, but I sort of know what you mean, because like instruments like that, like acoustic instruments, let's say, take just a different set of skills that you need to develop before you can get anything that sounds good.
Right.
Like piano and keyboard and the samples that you use are you know, the tone is not something you need to figure out.
Right.
Yeah.
With acoustic instruments, the tone is such a big part of it, and you know, until you get there, it's.
I find that
not
like
really
because
useful.
I'm a keyboardist, I can pretty much access those sounds anyway. So it gets my jujus going, I guess. You know, I don't feel like I'm like in need of an alto sax when I can get close enough. I can get like a 90% of what I want it to sound like through a keyboard.
Right.
It's never perfect, but I'm like, you know what? The investment of time is just like, you know, as you get older, you're just like,
Absolutely. And Robert Dick was talking about this on his episode. He's been fooled by flute samples.
Oh yeah.
We've been fooled by everything, I'm sure. So
the other thing too is it's like, you know, I could definitely pay musicians to be in here and do stuff, but I'm like, I'm not selling music. You know, I'm one of those musicians that I just do it. Like I've reached the point in my life where I just do it for fun. And, you know, the audio engineering side of it, the producing side of it was just a means to an end for my songwriting. I knew early on, like in high school, I liked the songwriting, the behind the glass side of it. Mm-hmm. So me going to, you know, the audio engineering program and learning, you know, the software was just so I could do my own stuff. So, I mean, it's
where
great.
did you study that?
So I went to the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences in Arizona. It was like a 10-month program plus like a 3-month internship, give or take. It was good. It was definitely a learning experience, crash course. It's just like one of those, you know, you're in there day in, day out, and it's like 4-hour classes a day, which isn't bad, but you know, most of the students are there like 16 hours a day, just enjoying it. You know, they're hanging out,
Getting to use the equipment.
I mean, they're
that
like
they have,
stupid stuff. Like you're excited to be in $1 million studio working on SSLs, which are like industry standards. I mean, any good record is usually on like one of like 3 or 4 consoles, and the SSL is like, you know, one of those $1 million consoles that, you know, we got to work on, and we're happy to be there wrapping cables, you know. So we're just, you know, all the students are in the same boat. I was 18 when I went 19, and a lot of people had a ton of experience. Like when we had this project in a music theory class. I don't know why it was theory, but we had this project where we had a $10,000 budget and we got to build a studio. And one of the things I bought was a 12-channel mixer, and I'm thinking, or 12-track mixer is how they worded it. I was like, 12 tracks. That means I can put 12 tracks on my CDs. Like each channel is its own song. And then, like, it never dawned on me like multi-track recording is a thing. Like I had no idea. So, you know, learning in the school I was step one. I mean, I had some music background, but you know, playing piano and recording are just two different worlds.
Absolutely. Well, luckily one plays really well into the other.
Yeah, I mean, if
the keyboard is such a good interface for getting your ideas out on there. They make MIDI wind instruments, but they're kind of clunky, and just the nature of that has to be single note. It's, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you like music, you hit a point where you either make it a career or you do it because you love it as a hobby, and it's like, man, it's a great stress relief from life. It's a good escape. So it's like, that's where I'm at now with it. And, you know, every once in a while I have recording sessions where somebody comes in and it kind of like re-sparks it. I have a lot of hip hop clients, a lot of singers that I deal with primarily, only because my room isn't perfect for instrumental tones, I guess. I mean, it's a little tight. I mean, I usually suggest to people, if you're going to get really solid drum tracks, spend $80 an hour on those Philly studios that have badass rooms. You know, they got the cathedral ceilings, and like, you know, spend the money where if you're trying to sell a record, you know.
Well, just a disclaimer for the listeners: we're in a much better setup studio right now than we normally in my house. He's got lots more soundproofing and multiple rooms, and we'll post some pictures. Maybe.
There's isolation.
There's isolation. So
it's a nice medium for like a home studio. It fits my needs, so that's really what it is. I mean, I've recorded bands in here. I was in a band for about 5 years. We got to record everything in here, and it was great. And you know, you listen back now, it's like, oh, I could have got this drum tone, and I should have taken more time on mic placement, and yeah. But that's the learning process. It's the fun part.
Yeah.
You go back and you hear your mistakes, and you're like, oh man, look how much I've grown. So
I'll do that better next time.
Yeah, for sure.
Our first track is called Geronimo, and it's one that Stephen put together using some samples that Dave and I recorded during our session. He ended up choosing an isolated flute segment of an improvisation and then developed it into this song, on which he also sang and rapped.
I wanna live fast, not die slow, no swan song. Gonna skip a wrinkle. Got all these ho-ho-hos in the back of the throat that living like Kris Kringle. I'm calling you all in with this rack, stacking these chips, bringing a flick cash on the chick fast, make it drizzle a bit as a sprinkle and single. Never mix signals, I got bars for days, you know my range is long, and I got that Ruben studded, Buddha body, but my game is strong, and I eats the beef like pizza. What the hell you think I'm on? I'm the unstoppable prodigal son of Mama Celeste and Papa John. That's how I get it when I be going hard. Travel from the local bar straight onto the boulevard. Running like I sleep when I'm dead, you know it's time to go. Jumping off the edge of the world, yelling Geronimo.
Can we go back just a little bit further? Like, where did you get your start with piano? Did you start when you were real little?
Yeah,
Did you just kind of...
So my mom really pushed me into piano lessons. She's not musically inclined, I don't think, for the most part.
Just appreciates it?
Yeah, and then although like in her later years, she got into piano lessons and violin lessons. So I guess she likes, I think she just likes doing stuff. She's like one of those energy people that likes to, what are we going to do today? Yeah. But yeah, I inherited my parents' voice as well, so you'll hear a lot of terrible singing and to put them on blast. But I feel like that's how it is with songwriters. It doesn't matter what you sound like as long as you can get the idea out. And
luckily that there's a lot of people who have voices that wouldn't be, anything on their own, but they can write songs that can move you.
And if I have something that I am just like confident in, I had a song called Friendzone. Got friend-zoned, and I wrote a song in about 2 minutes.
Oh, really?
It was like one of those, like, when the inspiration's there, you just got to run with it. I just got done seeing Jersey Boys, so that doo-wop style was in my head. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, man, falsetto stuff. I'm like hearing all this stuff, and it's like this really simple song. I'll play it on this podcast to give you a little taste of it. So I recorded it all myself, all the layers, literally in like 2 days. Got everything done start to finish. And I'm like, you know what? This song's too good. I might be able to sell this song. I was like, let me get some like real singers on it. So I got 3 local guys all recorded here. We got a video done for it just for like,
I watched the video for that actually
just to do it
the other day. How did that video come together?
So it was I had an idea for like, it had this doo-wop feel to it, and so I was like, we got to do it like some sort of like car hop diner. So Nifty 50s was right up the street, and like I sent them a letter or email. I'm like, can we shoot here? Are you cool with that? So they're like, yeah, outside, just don't like take up the parking lot shooting. So they were cool with us shooting outside. It was fine. There happened to be a fair, the Goshen Fair, which is huge. It's West Goshen Fire Company or something. Mm-hmm. They do a good fair there.
Production value, right?
Yeah. So I had a buddy that shot videos. I mean, it's a network of people. When you record, like, every artist that comes in here usually has a team around them of like friends and family that's like, hey, I do videography, I do this. So I got the people that were available. It was in the right price range of what I needed, and the song was so good that I was like, I have to be in this song somewhere. So I like made a little rap part, and it doesn't fit the song, but it was like, you know what? This is my style. I'm always that kind of guy that like, I'll just shove stuff in there because it's weird. It's like, and it's still in the context of the pop music or hip hop music brand, but it's, it's just like me, when you hear it, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's definitely his touch.
And then the video too, I think complements it. And
Oh, Kenneth Flash was the other location that we got to do. That was great because we I don't know if we performed there, or I at least had known musicians that went in there for like an open mic night, open jam nights and stuff. They're really, really friendly. I mean, these are the venues I like hanging out with because they are the ones that take care of the local musicians. I mean, you go to Kenneth Flash, there's you'll see their wall of just local people. Charlie Phillips played there. I got to play with his band for a little bit. But it's like real good musicians, and like, here's you got to grease the hand a little bit. I bought the guy like a bottle of scotch to like play there. Yeah, it cost me what, $30? Like, that's way better than hiring,
renting a room.
Yeah. And he had the equipment already there. The stage lighting was there. I'm like, cool.
Nice.
And now, just, I didn't know if I'd use them again. So I was just like, here's a bottle of scotch. Let's just remember my name kind of thing next time I call. And it's, you gotta grease those hands.
Nice.
It's a game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like so a huge percentage of it is non-musical things. You know,
Yeah.
if you're trying to build a career, you've got to hustle, and you know, no matter what
The
genre
marketing's
you're
crazy.
in, that's do you, more than 50%, right? What do you think?
So I just saw in the news, Kylie Jenner is, I think, thank God I don't know the name, is the first like billionaire, and she's 19 years old or 20 or something, because she's an influencer. She gets $500,000 to post something on Instagram. So, you know, do that a couple times a week, the money's just rolling in. So
That's nice.
it's just like, if you can brand yourself, I mean, rap is hip hop in general is a brand forward thing. If you are the best rapper in the world, doesn't matter if you're ugly or, I mean, you can be ugly, but you got to have a cool hair with being ugly.
Now, you just you said rap and hip hop, and I'm sort of confused on, are those terms that are able to be used interchangeably? Does rap refer to the lyrics and hip hop refers to the style of the music?
I used to be very like defensive, like, you know, it's not real hip hop and stuff. But as I've gotten older, I've kind of realized, like, look, man, things change. I don't want to sound like an old head and be like, you know, I don't understand mumble rappers, but I mean, I don't, but I also see there's something there.
It's not your thing.
It's
but
catchy.
Right.
Pop a couple drinks in you, you start dancing these dumb songs, and you're like, oh, I see. You know, it's like, you know, there's a market for it. I try to look at it from a business perspective. It's, you know, it's not always about content. I know a lot of really good lyricists that are just still kind of underground. Watsky's one. He's like one of my favorite rappers out there right now.
Yeah, that was going to be another question that I had for you. Is like I really haven't dipped my toes very much into the rap or hip hop world.
Yeah.
And so, like, do you have any recommendations that, like, sort of easy ins or you know, people who are on the fringe and you're like, oh yeah, they've got weird stuff. Maybe that would be a good one for Sean to listen to.
I'll start with Watsky because he kind of taps into a few things that you might like.
How do you spell that?
Watsky. It's his last name is George Watsky, but he goes by Watsky. Anyway, I saw him for like the 6th time this tour, and he's about my age, and the guy's always grinding. I mean, he comes out with an album every year, and his production, it's like his producer is also his keyboardist / bassist, and the guy's like on his own is a great musician, and he does his own stuff. So the fact that it's almost like a super group going on there, he's got different singers on, and he just works. He did a video catalog of his last record, which was like 18 songs long. So, I mean, all that in a year to do 18 videos. I mean, he got a start from YouTube, so I know, you know, he's not doing it for enjoyment. He is a little bit, but, like, you know, there's money in there.
He's not a hobby.
He's got a huge following on YouTube. So, like, you know, he's starting to pack. He started out at the Trocadero balcony with, like, fitting about 100 people as his first, like, you know, tour. And, you know, he just played Union Transfer, TLA.
Nice.
He was in, like, the Chameleon Club in Lancaster. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I've been there.
So it's kind of interesting. I mean, you see him getting bigger and bigger, and it's like, man, what are these guys doing? But anyway, he's got really good musicianship, lyrical content. I like the witty, funny stuff. You know, he's got great.
Yeah, me too. Part of the thing that turns me off is when it's all about just how great the person is.
Oh, there's nothing worse. Yeah.
Yeah. Just,
or like how gangster you are. It's like, I mean, I understand that's relatable to some people, and
right, of course, there's a place for that. Like, sure, express yourself. Like, people are going to relate to you, but I just can't really get in on
where
that.
Like that becomes the genre is like how hard you are, or how great you are. It's like, so, I feel that way too with, like, you know, Pitbull's like just straight party songs. I mean, I know he doesn't. He's more of a collaborator. He just kind of pops on records, but it's how you want to approach it. I mean, rap versus hip hop is there's people that like to just go straight old school beats, and they just feel that pocket that's what moves them, and they can talk about anything, and it sounds great. Wu-Tang still does that. I mean, they just like, and they're always going to have a following. It's just, that's why I don't even try to be like, yeah, one's rap, one's hip hop. We just kind of have fun with it, man. There's no rules. Music, the more you love about music, the more you'll find something to love in something. So, like, you know, if you like instrumentation, if you like the beats, you know, they could just like fart on a record and it would sound great. I mean, that's and some people do. Some people ad lib, yeah. It's like, okay, but the beat's hot. Like, you know, you'll just kind of bob your head to it. And it's great. You're just kind of like, you know, it's good workout stuff. It's good dance stuff. You know, you'll find something to love you just got to carve out.
I think that is a big part of it, isn't it? Like, it's kind of functional music. Sometimes you don't need to be analyzing it or
I'm
really
very much
appreciate
beat
it
and
but
production first, and then I listen to lyrics, and I just how I'm wired. Some people like soak in the lyrics and they write it on their Facebook wall or whatever, or their Twitter. They're like, these lyrics are so meaningful. I'm like, I don't care what they say as long as I'm just like, it's in the pocket. Yeah. Or there's like a sound that I haven't heard before, especially from a production standpoint. I'm like, what is that? And I'll go in there and I'll try to re-record stuff, and I'm like, I'm gonna copy this beat and see how close I get. And people do it on YouTube all the time, so it's cool to like, you're almost like reverse engineering a beat, and you're kind of making your own. And in the process, you usually find a song within there that you're like, okay, it's close, but I'm going to use it for my own thing. Like I've copied melodies before, but if it's a vocal melody, I'll copy it and put it to an instrument, and I'll tease it into a chorus coming in. That way the listener's like, man, that sounds familiar, but I can't put my finger on it. It's like, yeah, because I stole it. I mean, we all just kind of interpret and like,
well,
come sue me, please.
Welcome to classical music also, because I mean,
they're all
that
derivatives
happens all the time too. Yeah, like one of my students was playing something yesterday, and he was like, he played like a 3-note pattern. He was like, oh, that sounds like just like this thing we played in our band piece. And I was like, well, yeah, there's
probably
you're
so
gonna
many
get that
notes, especially in the 2 keys that you know how to play in. Like,
Sure.
There's only so many combinations. Like yeah, it's whether it was intentional or not, you'll find things that sound familiar.
I hear a lot of people nowadays with just radio music, top 40. They'll tease an old hook or bridge or something that like somebody, I don't even know who did it, but they like took like a Justin Timberlake line and used it. That Halsey did it, used the Justin Timberlake line in a song, and it's something that just catches your ear a little bit, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. And especially the older people that are like, oh, I like it now because it's familiar, it's safe, it's nostalgic.
And there's a touchstone there.
Yeah, for sure.
Next up, we have a clip of Stephen's song Friendzone featuring Jamall Anthony, Justin Aries, and Jay Mouzon. After that, we'll have an example of the music of the rapper Watsky, whom Stephen mentioned a little bit ago. We have a brief clip of Watsky's song Woah Woah Woah, so you can get a taste of his sound.
Oh, he's so nice. I always hear you say he's sweet and kind, but I don't think of him that way. I'm so your type. Your parents like me too. The perfect guy, but not good enough for you. You won't let go when you need a hand. Or you need to talk about how there's no good man. I've heard it all before, but still stay on the line. One day I'll press ignore, till then I'll be that guy. And I'll wait for the day I can change your mind. And I'll waste all my time stuck inside your friend zone. There's nowhere else I can go. I can tell you wish I wouldn't try. I can read between your vague replies. Stuck inside your friend zone. Guess that I've always known. I wonder if it's worse to say goodbye. I'd rather be alone than live a lie. Stuck inside your friend zone. Your friend zone.
C'est la vie. Better pay my fee. They kick it in Seattle in a Patagonia jacket. They get it in the bag in a plain white tee. Hey mommy, your P1T. Wanna see me speak, then I go. Every time I get a beat, I know I gotta beat it up, I bend it, then I break it, then I chop it, then I eat it up, and Peter would never approve of the way I've been treating the music. I bleed it, I bruise it, I kick it to the curb, and then I'm sipping up my bourbon, I be freaking and doing it, keeping it moving. I'm picking apart the muscle when I'm thinking about the hustle, but I'm nice.
You mentioned earlier the Beatles and the Beach Boys were huge influences on you too. What other like non-hip hop influences have worked their way into your music?
We did my band did a Phillies anthem because I'm a big baseball nerd. And again, from a marketing standpoint, a Phillies song was a great way to get heard. I mean, we got on the 10 show on NBC. We got in the Delaware County Daily Times for it. People love sports stuff, so we just latched ourselves onto it. And we were the first ones doing it that I know of. The next year, they were in the playoffs for like 5 straight years. So like after we did it, it like doubled the next year and then doubled again after that, and everybody was doing it. So we were on our second anthem, and I was watching a show on HBO, and it was about Hurricane Katrina, and there was a New Orleans funeral going on, so the horns were playing. And I was just like kind of dancing to it. I was like vibing. I'm like, oh man. I was like, here it is. So I got a guy play trumpet, and it was like this big like celebration Phillies song that we did. And yeah, there was definitely a hip hop element. Like we had a rapper, a guy I recorded. He's like one of my favorite rappers too. He's a local guy, C-Hann, if he's out there. He laid over top of it. I'm like, man, it's hip hop, but it's not. It's like definitely just like hip hop has just become pop music nowadays.
Absolutely,
yeah, totally is integrated.
Really,
I mean, you hear singers that can't rap on songs, and it's usually something cool. I mean, it's something new. You're always trying to find the next thing. So it's like if you're doing something that was done 2 years ago, too late. You can't even do something that like if we're under a record label and you're doing something, I can't copy you because you're probably going to do it better than me because you created something. Anybody that copies it is not going to be as good. It'll be cool, but
interesting. And hip hop goes through phases, I think, and pop music in general goes through phases kind of faster, I think, than the classical world. Does that stuff cycle back? Is there stuff that kind of gets accepted as like, okay, yeah, this is cool, you can just use this now? Or production things fall out of fashion? A
big thing in the 80s for just pop music in general was like heavy reverbs. They kind of fell out of fashion when you know how to use it. So like I'll use that for an example and also go to scratching on the turntable. They would overuse it. So in the early 90s, everything had scratching on it, late 80s, especially hip hop stuff, just scratching everywhere. And then people got sick of it, so they kind of were like, all right, none of it. And then they found a happy medium where it was like here and there. Same thing with auto-tune. We went through this like 5-year patch of like everything was auto-tuned. I made so much money in the studio from people wanting to do auto-tune. And I'm like, you know what? I was like, this is great. This is a gold mine for me. It was just a feast. It was the feast of Future. Future's a rapper that kind of like, T-Pain did it, but Future... It became more of like it got accepted in the gangster rap world, I guess. So it was cool to be like, thug rap with autotune. It's very weird. That was like the tight jean phase that happened.
There was a tight jean phase.
There was a skinny jean phase in hip hop. It's still there a little bit, but this was like early 2010s maybe. It's weird. Thank God I missed it. I'm still baggy pants and sweatpants. And I got the Velcro shoes. I'm still stuck in the late 80s. But anyway, autotune was overused, and then they kind of found ways to dial it back and use it more of an accent thing than a feature.
And the feature of the entire song.
So like, nowadays you'll hear, we were talking about this earlier, you hear like a vocal sample that Ableton is a good program that does these great vocal samples. Like you can just take anything, pitch shift it up. It sounds great. If I use pitch shift on Pro Tools, it sounds terrible. So it's just certain programs have like better features. And it's also probably, you can probably buy programs, but I'm a broke musician, so I'm not going to do that. Let's not get crazy here. The big thing now is using vocal samples. You'll hear those little squeals and little just little niblets of vocals that lay over a beat that makes, if you just have a guitar, bass, piano, drums, riff, it just adds so much more. It's like little textural things that float through your ears, and it's just an interesting.
Yeah.
Anybody that's been in a band knows how boring a song can be in 3 minutes. It's like, songs, 4-chord songs get real stale real quick. If you can sprinkle these little production elements in, again, not to go back to Watsky, but he started singing a lot more on this last record, and they just do so many cool things for his voice because he is not a singer. Like live, he's just not a singer. Love the guy, can't sing. So they do so many cool things to really up the whole project's value, and especially if you can kind of contain it within an album or something like that. It's like, hey, dude, he took a risk. This is cool. You'll see on some of my songs, I can't sing for shit, so I can't sing. Edit.
No, he's fine.
Yeah, I can't sing, and I kind of stay behind the walls of auto-tune here and there. I have 2 songs that I did kind of in the same time frame of each other, and they were just real heavy auto-tune, and I got so used to hearing it that I'm like, I can't change it now because I get used to hearing it this way. I'm like, everything sounds different. So, one day I might have somebody re-record it, but it's one of those things I just like to purge the songs. Once they're out, once I'm done mixing, I've heard it 3,000 times. I'm done with it.
Well, you can play it as an aesthetic choice if you're leaning into it of like, this is auto-tune.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But I'm usually like, I hope somebody hears this and approaches me that they want to re-record it and change some stuff up. So yeah, there's always something new you can do.
Next, we have a bit of that 2010 Phillies anthem Stephen mentioned. Here's Dynasty of Destiny by Stephen Kokas and his band Zorro Gato, featuring Amanda Joe and C-Hann on vocals and Ed Carr on trumpet. Go Sports!
Halliday has his size. The 1-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. He got him! And the Philadelphia Phillies have won their 4th straight National League East crown.
Win some, lose some. Last year, that's what we had to witness. Now it's 2010, so now it's back to business. First things first, there's something that I have to say. Shout out to the Cy Young candidate, Roy Halladay. Hamels and Oswald, rotation is unstoppable. Make the odds of beating us smaller than impossible. Howard is heating up, pitches, we beat him up. Atlanta thought they had it, they can't compete with us. We hit a bad slump, we fought through injuries, but now we bounce back, we're making history. Let's get Rollins rolling, put Chooch behind the plate. I'll say it one more time, we got the best at second base. High five all over the world, I want a round trip, take it to another World Series. One more time, go for it all, cheer on the legends who fall, come on, let's go Phillies. And we go with the stars. Finally claim victory. No, it won't go away. Dynasty of Destiny.
Unbelievable. Everybody loves a parade. Everybody loves a celebration.
Polanco's pulling these hits. Raul be ripping them ropes. Swerve be rocking his beat.
Oh yeah. We were talking about those trends in pop production kind of coming up. Are there any that specifically annoy you?
So there was Taylor Swift is a good example of this. There's this thing that's like, let me see if I can do it on the microphone. But, hey! Over and over again. And it's like real dulled out, echoed out in the background, but I'll hear it on her stuff all the time. And it's this one like, hey, that's in the background.
It's like the same sample.
It's
hey,
the same sample that I know that it must be a stock thing on one of these programs that they just like plug in whenever they need to fill a void. So in pop music specifically, you can never let anything breathe unless it's like an intended breath. So let's say you have a vocal heavy verse, and then on the 4th bar, you're just saying like, now watch it fly, and then there's a little gap. Mm-hmm. You'll hear a hey or something else because they have to fill it with something, or you'll hear like an instrument walk in, like a bass riff, do 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 dum 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 dum. So like they have to fill in every, and I enjoy that too because like I get to dissect that and I get to steal those techniques here. Mm-hmm. But that one specific hey eats me up. I'm gonna find examples. I'm gonna plug it in here, and you can kind of. We'll do some cool now that since I'm able to do the behind the glass stuff. I'll definitely find you 5 or 6. Another one was this one was brought to my attention through like somebody did a really good video on Facebook or YouTube or something. They call it the Millennial Whoop. Oh yeah, and it's like whoa oh, and it's done like over and over again on like 8 different songs. But again, it's like some of this people use the same songwriters. Max Martin is a big songwriter. He did stuff for Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, and there's like elements of like the song sounding the exact same. And like, you know, any pop song in the late 90s, early 2000s, he probably had his hand in. And he's a guy that I forget where he's from, but he's got kind of like a third grade English reading level. And all this stuff is really simple. And I'm like, you know, that's why it hits, because he does these like really simple lyrics and melodies. And it's like,
everybody can relate to it and put their own spin on
late 90s, 2000s pop music. I mean, if you just wrap your head around it, there's probably like 6 variations of chord structures that they use over and over again. And it's just like, what can they fill in with the instruments? You know, what kind of interesting ding or whistle or pop or click can we put in there to make it like a little bit different? But if, you know, they're the easiest ones to mash up. So when I get to do DJ things, I am always throwing in like, you know, Britney, Backstreet, Christina, O-Town. I'm throwing all these out there.
I forgot they
easy stuff to just mix in and out. You know,
I didn't know you DJ.
Very
do
steady.
Much DJ?
Not much. So my mom got married 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. And I was either going to buy her the music for the night, like a wedding band or a DJ, or I was going to do it myself. And I was like, this is a really good excuse to buy a Mac and a DJ controller. So I spent like $3,500 buying all this stuff. And I used that as an excuse to like, oh, well, I'll DJ. So I got to do that. I got to do my stepsister's wedding. I got 2 band members that I might be doing their weddings coming up, but I got to do and I got thrown right into weddings, which was kind of interesting because
high pressure situation.
Yeah, you can't mess up. And I've had like a few where I'm like, I can't get sounds out.
I've done it. There were lots of mistakes at weddings.
So my stuff wasn't syncing. Nothing was like whatever. So I was almost at the point where I like had my girlfriend's phone at the time, and I was like, look, we're gonna go between my phone and your phone, and I'm gonna queue up the songs and mix. And I was ready to do that. And like in the last 10 minutes of like the cocktail hour that I had like one phone syncing, it finally just started reading, and I was like, I mean, I was like ready to die. It was too much. That's why like I love the recording side, because there's low pressure. You know, we got infinite digital space here to do as many takes as we want. The songs we did today, we did about 2 hours of raw recording, and we're going to chop that up to like 3 or 4 3-minute songs. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
No pressure. It's like, yeah, it's a lot of time, but live sound pressure is just like, nah, man, you got the whole venue looking at you, the band's looking at you. No thanks. And that's where the money is these days. If you're an audio engineer, you know, there might be like 1 or 2 studios in your area worth their salt, but there's a million live sound venues. There's churches that need live sound, podcasts that need live. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, live sound is like, it's just not for me.
Gotcha. And like you work with a lot of different artists and stuff. You obviously, you know, like to collaborate. What do you think like what draws you to kind of being on that side of the glass and kind of supporting someone else's vision of what they're trying to do? I know you like to work on your own stuff too, but
so I think for me, I've always been a complimenter, even in my work life, my career. I've never been that one that's like the main guy, or at least I don't enjoy the stresses of it. I have done it, but like if it's up to me to like lead a session, it's tough. I can like usually get inside people's heads and see where they're going musically. So like for me to be to get some production efforts on my end, it's easy because I can just be like, look, this is what I'm hearing, and then they could try it. I'm like, take home this mix, take home that mix to see where it sits. And usually I'm right, but some people want a lot of heavy effects on, some people want to sit in autotune land.
Right.
And I got to let them make those decisions. It's their choice. I'm more of like a complimenting producer. I try to like, if you don't want to tune your drums and you come in here and want to record drums, I'm gonna let them stay untuned. It's your choice. It's like, if it doesn't bother you, some people like to record to click, some people don't. I try to give them every tool that they don't have within the realm of what they think is necessary to record a record. So
and not force it.
No, there's producers like that do force it, and they usually get better results because they know the right answers. But man, musicians are fragile. Like they are like very, very fragile when it comes to like you telling them something sounds a little off. It gets in their head. My ex-girlfriend was a singer, and we were together for like a decade basically. And I used to just like shove songs down her throat to sing here, and I like never gave her. You're always harder on your family, your girlfriend, stuff like that. I mean, I am. I'm hard. If you're my family or like a best friend, I'm holding you to a way higher standard. So like, I used to just be like, no, let's do this. And I just was not attentive to her ego, and she hated it by the end of it. Like she just fought to record, so I like kind of ruined it for her, which that was a nice learning step in my growth. So right now I just try to like give people space in here, and then like sometimes if you have the right answer and they're not budging, give them a day and send them the mix later and be like, listen, I got this new idea. I want to run this by you. I listened in my car. I'm thinking it sounds better this way. The car mix is always like a nice test. And usually if they're just fresh ears, they'll hear it the way you hear it. They'll hear the right answer.
And probably the fact that you're selective in you sort of pick your battles.
Yeah.
That probably gives you
yeah.
a little bit more weight when you do say, no, I think I'm right here. This, take a day and listen to it. That's you're probably doing yourself
car
a favor.
mix is also a nice excuse to just revisit the same like just be like, so here's
and it's just the easier approach to let artists do what they want, because I'm not a high dollar an hour studio. It's like this is like easy, low pressure situation for them too. They're not wasting a ton of money, so it's like I can suggest things and it doesn't cost them a lot of time or money. And they can. It's an interesting process because it's a very subjective art. There's no right answers. Alanis Morissette did a album. Jagged Little Pill was her big album, I think it was. I think so. Yep. There was a guitar plug sound of like the chord entering a jack, and it's like a little. The engineer took it out as expected, and she's like, "No, I heard it on the demo track like this. I want it back in there." And it just like a little touch like that. It's the complete wrong move, but maybe it added
the quote unquote wrong move.
It added maybe a little touch of like, hey, this is a nice raw recording. Atmosphere is a rap group. It's a duo of a rapper and a beat producer that he has a handheld mic of some sort of dynamic mic, probably a 57 because they're the most common. And he just raps over this guitar lick, and it's one of the best songs he has. It's called Guarantees. So I like that kind of like, it just makes it a personal touch, in the world of like everything's got to be quantized and the beats have to be perfect. I'll move beats around, but it doesn't have to be like exactly on. So
I think that gives it character when
you want imperfection. You want, but you can't be sloppy either. So like it's a give and take. You really are again picking your battles. It's like, all right, drums have to be really tight, but this guitar can be a little late coming in because it gives it a little sexy on it. It's just like this little lick can come in a little late. Just give a little funk, a little stank on it. And it really does. I mean, it just depends on the genre. Jazz. If you're tight on jazz, it sounds bad. If you're loose on classical, it sounds bad. So it's just it depends what they're going for.
The last track we created with Stephen features me on beatbox, flute, and Dave on bass guitar. We laid down those tracks first, and then Stephen worked some magic, adding keyboards and other layers to the mix. This was me trying to redeem myself for what I felt was a weak beatbox flute performance last episode. I'm a little happier with this, but I can do better, so you'll hear some more of that on an upcoming episode, I'm sure. This one's called Something Like That.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about when I was listening over your stuff that you did the tune Heroes and Villains, and we were talking kind of about you were saying with production before. If you asked me what the lyrics were that you were rapping, I cannot recall a single one. Because I'm terrible with lyric. Like I just don't absorb lyrics.
But I can't either.
The production was fantastic.
I couldn't tell you the lyrics either. A lot of stuff I write, I'm just like, I'll have to hear it back. Like I don't perform live for the most part because I just don't remember my stuff. But yeah, production wise, I took this beat and chopped it up, and I made this like just kind of a cool instrumental track, and it's super busy just because Brian Wilson is a wall of vocals all the time. And I made two different tempos to it, and I wasn't sure what I was going to use, so I just kind of shoved them together. And
I was curious because that was or yeah, for the listeners at home, we were talking about Heroes and Villains is a track off of Smile, which was like a Beach Boys album that Brian Wilson worked on forever and kind of released in pieces and kind of sort of not. And then eventually it wasn't until like after 2000s that you got like the full, like this is what it was supposed to kind of sort of sound like. Yeah. But I was curious with that, like what was the Heroes and Villains? Cause it sounded, the thing that stuck out to me was it sounded so clean. Yeah. Because I'm a nerd at the level that I've listened to the Smile session recordings, which is like yeah, like the 4 albums.
Wow, that's better than me. That's
it's like 3 or 4 albums or 3 or 4 discs of just like all the studio takes.
I'm so glad you told me that. I'm gonna look that up.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. And so what I was curious was that because you got such a clean sound. I mean, I know it's probably been a while since you worked on that, but it sounded like they were. There's a couple moments where I wasn't sure if you just re-recorded some extra vocals to add in to make it sound more live. But it sounded so vibrant for being something that was like kind of these worn down recordings from the 60s. It was
so when that I think the chunk I used for the most part was right in the beginning. It goes do 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 do, and it's just vocals. There's no like extra stuff going on. Yeah. So I didn't have to like chop drum. Like there's ways to hide certain frequencies, but like drums are going to pop through, bass is going to pop through, but this happened to be just a vocal layer, and then I think I did my own drums around it. And the fact that like any imperfections that are on there are usually hidden by my own vocals, so like, you know, by the time, again, going back to producing other people, you know, people always want perfect takes, but I'm like, no, we got it, you know, trust me, let me edit. In school,
listening to yourself naked and with nothing on it, they preach to get the best raw recordings in audio school, but you have to like budget your time and like, you know, the effort it takes. If you're 95% happy with something, that's fine, and I can usually fix it, and I take pride in my editing. Like I enjoy editing. I'm one of those guys that if I did video, I would enjoy editing videos. Like that's just how I am. Weird.
I like doing that like tedious stuff. Like I'm the one that like so I bartend. I'm the one that I'll like clean out stuff bartending. Like while I'm like, oh yeah, let me wipe down the shelf. I'm like one of those guys that likes to do tedious dumb stuff because I'm just like neurotic like that. So I guess that's probably why I landed in this field and enjoy it. So but yeah, going back to that Brian Wilson, anytime I sample something, I'll try to get like if I sampled Erykah Badu, I try to find her acapella take. If I can't, you know, if it fits in the mix and like the drums aren't popping out or anything else isn't going on, it's fine. But sometimes there's happy accidents. Sometimes you hear something and you kind of cram it in there and the busyness works because it's in the same key or something. Sometimes it doesn't. Like I've tried to mash up songs where it's like one key changes off, so I have to like pitch shift a little bit and it just never quite clicks. So it's like, you know, I just wish I had access to every stem file and everything. If there was one thing that I would pay for, like, you know, people don't pay for anything. We get cracked software. I'm not admitting anything, but I'm just saying, if there's one thing I would pay for, it would be stem files for just the universe of music. You know, getting Marvin Gaye audio, vocal samples.
Tracks.
I mean, Dr. Dre found them, I think, on a whim. Questlove is a big record collector, and that guy's like always searching for just unique, rare stems.
Yeah, that would be cool if there was a
like
database
vinyl.
of those out somewhere.
Yeah.
So if like anybody, Dr. Dre have the money to actually pay.
If anybody has 3 billion hours extra, if you have 3 billion hours of extra time, please do that. I will commission it. But yeah, it's cool working yourself into a hole and then digging back out. So like if I find something, I'm like, I have to sample this. I love it. But there's like no acapellas. It's like, you know, you just got to find something that makes it work. And then if you don't, you just record what you have and try to change it later. There was a Taco Bell commercial that featured, was it Taco Bell? Taco Bell did Halsey covering Mad World. And it's actually is a car commercial. They did Ain't That a Kick? Dean Martin's Ain't That a Kick in the Head? I think Dean Martin. See, yeah. So anyway, I had to wait, and I like went on their website to try to find it, and it was like it was a famous DJ that made it, and they just didn't make it public. So it's like finally somebody had the tools to like pick it apart out of the commercial, and it's like, I finally got to leave. But it was like 6 months later. So
interesting.
Yep.
Huh. Cool. We like to ask, or in the past few episodes, we've liked to ask, do you have like a dream project? Do you have something on your mind that's just been like never happened totally yet, and one day will? You
know, I don't know if there's like one specific thing. I went out to LA to like learn from a guru. I would love to just like get higher. Like just, I mean, I don't even need a lot of money. I need enough money to live. And if I could just somehow make a living, being an assistant engineer for like 5 years, because they learn everything. You know, if you work under somebody that's great, you get to like learn everything about sessions, about musicians, and it sucks. It's such a grind. It's like, but it's like every time I get older, I'm like, man, they're there for like 12 to 15 hours a day sometimes. I mean, Ryan Adams, would do 20-hour sessions. I mean, he had a little help along the way, but you know, he did 20-hour sessions. And
how can you stay focused?
And the assistant is in first and out last, and it's like, you know, I would like come back from my shift the next day, and he's like, "Yeah, I haven't left yet. I've just been sleeping in the storage closet, like here and there." Yeah, he just like toughs it out. And this guy, he was assistant engineer in Electric Lady Studios in New York City, which is a big Jimi Hendrix, you know, famous studio. It's been in movies. It's hugely famous. This guy was making $10 an hour, and the receptionist was making $13. So like that just shows you
like how many people just want that job they can.
They had 8 other interns that were working there for free, myself included, that were just waiting for somebody to mess up. Like one of the interns lost the file somehow, mislabeled it, lost it, deleted it, and everybody was very excited around me, and it sucked. It sucked, man. It's a sucky industry. We just like we're waiting to bite each other's heads off, and you know, it was way more beneficial to come home and learn this side of the studio. But then when I got to do my own studio. I got to do my own projects. Yeah. But I can only do so much here. You know, it's like, you know, you're never going to work on an SSL. Like there's things that if you get too technical with me, I went to school and I've been doing it for 10 years. If you get too technical about like, you know, ohms and amplitudes and stuff, I'm like, you know what? Let me look this up. I don't know all, you know, it's just a career learning thing. So career project for me would just be like, I would just like to get my feet in the industry enough to just do it full time and like learn. Because anybody that's ever made
it's a rare opportunity.
Yeah, if anybody has ever made it, they got their job on just pure luck. It's like, oh, I ran into David Bowie and he needed a second engineer for this project, and I just happened to be at that studio. Like it's always a stupid random story like that, and they just get their luck. But these days, it's like these audio schools pump out kids. I mean, there's no shortage of audio engineers.
Yeah. We've got one more piece to share with you before we wrap up. This is Stephen's track, Heroes and Villains, off of his album Letter Shor. As we discussed earlier, this track does some really fun sampling of a cappella vocal passages from the song Heroes and Villains by the Beach Boys.
People living inside me, fighting for life like a zombie. There's a hero and villain residing, but which one will come to the light and define me? I'm finding the more I ignore them, the more they keep shouting and fighting. They bust down the door to the lobby, but which one of them will take over my body? The hero inside is the gentleman, authentic and totally genuine. Not once up his bone in his body, and oddly he'll probably donate a skeleton. It's just that he's that type of specimen. He's better than everyone ever, man. He's opening doors for the elderly, feeding the poor and the clothing the veterans. The hero inside is a vision, and he lives in a moment, a minute, and if he really wants it, he's getting it. A true definition of discipline. No giving in, no giving up. Once he sets his sights on it, he's winning it, spending whatever the cheddar to better himself and invest, reinvest every dividend. He's so interesting, got stories galore for the children, offers his wisdom. He's at the politicking with the competition, but partisan, all of them listen, and he's humble about it. Never bicep flexed or puffing his chest up, that is extra. But there's a malevolent devil who's telling me next up is the villain inside. He's such a prick, type of guy who gets pleasure from punishment. Hypocrite, mention how ugly your husband is, then try to steal you away from your covenant. He's loving it, he's poking and prodding and knocking you down when he's struggling. Encourages loss of good judgment and imbibes and partakes if you're wondering. He prays to the almighty dollar, and if you ain't making it, don't even call up unless you be shaking it. Dancing at onyx like chocolate bunnies, it's best not to bother him. He's on trial for inciting riots, we can't lock him up, he belongs in the asylum. His victims are crying while he sits there smiling, playing the tiniest violin, spiraling out of control. Look at the mess he made, vigilante, rebellious renegade. To his credit, I'll admit he's not afraid. Got a big set of balls and a vertebrae. He's a bird of prey, he'll ruin your entourage like Sasha Grey. No moral compass or gravitas, but he'll knock the socks off Dr. J. He's a force to be reckoned with, sorta. After a 6-pack of Breckenridge Porter, treat you to tacos on south of the border, then help you develop an eating disorder. There's two people living inside me. There's a hero and villain. Would I be? Come one or the other, a fighter or lover. Till then I'll just laugh at the irony.
Thank you so much for listening to Sean and Dave Make Music. If you like what you heard today, please click the link to the Sketch Studio Bandcamp page and get yourself a bunch of free music. And as always, if you like our show, please be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends and colleagues if you think they might be into what we do. It's not something we just say at the end of the episodes. It would really help us out. If you've heard me say this 20 times, go ahead, take 5 minutes, click that iTunes link, and leave us a review, especially if you like us. If it's a terrible review, it's probably not worth leaving, but if you like us, go ahead. If you have any questions or comments or would like to submit a prompt for us to improvise off of, please send us an email at seananddaveMakeMusic@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/SeanandDaveMakeMusic. Thanks. See you next month.
But